Okay, our next story is about GTX 1080 and 1070. Take it away, Cyrus.
I think this is a. Wait, what? No, you confused the shite out of me.
Yeah, I'm totally confused. I thought this was roundtable time.
Yeah, where'd you even get that article? I'm confused.
I don't know. You linked it.
No, I didn't link it. This system, I don't know. But anyways, this GTX 1070 1080 will be released. Well, 1080 will be released 27th. I don't know what day the 1070 will be released, but System wants to go over the technical intricacies that he noted here. He could do that real quick.
And the link he has on screen, isn't that the link under the NVIDIA pricing? Is that the link that you opened up?
Yes.
Okay, so that Cyrus, that's your fault, not mine.
There's 3 links above that, or at least 2. But
the links on the screen, above that, the AMD bold claims and the tech specs for the GTX 1080, those were reference information. Besides the huge bulk blaster of information that I threw in the doc. So when it comes to the roundtable, that way we'd have stuff to throw at each other, like mud.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, anyways, so you threw this in the roundtable. So basically, NVIDIA will be releasing the 20 on the 27th of 1080. I don't know what day the 1070 comes out, but I have an issue with the 1070, which we'll get into here in a whole minute. The 1080 looks to be somewhat impressive. A little bit gimped, I'm thinking, but because of business reasons, but it's pretty impressive for what it is, for the price that they bringing it in at. Does anybody remember what price the 980 was brought in at?
I'm going to say about 600-ish.
I want to say it was about 650, close to 700. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think the price is very fair here. So yeah. System can go over these specs because it's a lot of information there. And squirrel.
All right. So here's the thing. The issue is they're comparing the 1080 to like the Titan X or something of that nature, which is like $1,000 card. It's expensive. It's the expensive cards, right? But they're wanting to get the performance. They're comparing the performance numbers to like the 980 Ti, which they're pricing the card closer to. But they're saying the card is equal to the Titan X or the Titan series cards. So I'm like, there's a disparity there, because if the 1080 is supposed to be like the Titans, and they're supposed to be accordingly added to that, but they're trying to price them at the 980 Ti range, but then at the same time, where's the 1070 at? Is the 1070 like the 970, or is it like the 980? If it's like the 980, then its performance is crap compared to the 980. Compared to like where that... So there's this huge disparity now, where it's like, where's your price per performance? Even if you're a gamer, period, like where's your price for performance? Should I just opt and buy the 1080 because it's priced cheaper, but it's supposed to perform or outperform or be better than the Titan? Or do I buy the 1070 and knowing that it's a crappier card by way far means it's a crappier card, but the price point isn't that far off? It's like, I don't know. It's like the Founders Edition is $700 for the 1080. You got the third parties. Third parties are going to be $600. Then you got the Founders Edition of the 1070 that's like $450. But then the third parties of the 1070 are going to be $379 or lower. So it's like, wait, what the hell?
For the record, the 970 was released last year at $330. So I don't know why it went up another $40. That's another issue.
But then, okay.
For those who don't know, Founders Edition is basically the card made by NVIDIA. The standard NVIDIA GTX card. Just wanted to put that as a note. in case somebody doesn't know what Founders Edition is.
But again,
It has magic pixie dust.
okay. So the point being is the performance. Yes, I get it. The performance is 1600 megahertz base compared to the 1000 megahertz base of the Titan X, right? So hands down, that's so much more better performance. And yes, they're providing that at a lower, price point comparative to what a Titan X would cost. But then you could get performance out of a 980 Ti that was close to that. And that's about where you're pricing it, right? So they're basically just making the 1080 a 980 Ti equivalent and getting rid of the Titan series style cards. In my opinion, that's what they're doing. And then the 970, which is technically supposed to be that next tier, I guess that would be the equivalency of the 1060. But if you look at the supposed specs of what the 1060 is supposed to be when it actually releases, it's going to even be a lower disparity. And it's going to be even worse. So it's like, so is it the 1080 is like the 980 Ti, and then you've got the 980? That's what the 1070 is. I mean, it's retarded. It's like,
I've actually done a little bit of thinking on this myself, and we're not moving away from 1080 anytime soon. 1080p is what I should have said. 1080p 60 is still going to be the gold standard for quite a while, and the 960 isn't really going to get you 1080p 60 in every game. It's going to come close. Maybe if you want to turn settings down.
The 1060. Well, I think what the 960 or the 1060 is supposed to do, that level of $250 card, is get you 1080p 60 at high. The difference between high and ultra is minimal. I mean that's been argued and debated time over time, but there is almost no difference between ultra and high, unless you're sitting there looking for every pixel and every particle and every sunburst band of rays coming from the lights in the ceiling. Yeah, all that crap. The 660 to 760 and the 960 did their jobs excellent at a $200 price point. Excellent. But I don't know what happens with this Pascal series remains to be seen, because we haven't seen the 1060s yet out in a while, but we've seen the benchmarks for the 1080s, and we can surmise some type of trickle down effect from that. But yeah, go ahead.
So now everything I've heard is that the 1080 is not performing at the same level as the 980 Ti and a Titan X. It's performing significantly above it. Is there anything that I may not have heard of?
But see, that's what's expected. That's the point. I expect that from the next generation. I expect the next generation card is supposed to outperform the generation before it. Right? That's the intent. That's what I expect. There was this issue with the 780 Ti's, but that's a whole other can of worms. But when it comes to this, I expect if I buy a 980 Ti, I expect it to outperform the generation before it. If I buy a 980, I expect it to outperform the generation before it. If I buy a Titan, I expect it to outperform the previous Titan. That's the intent to expect. But the problem I have has nothing to do with that. The problem I have to do is I have to take into consideration not only how it's going to perform under a Windows environment, I have to take into consideration how is my price per performance going to be under a Linux environment, and where is it that's the sweet spot where price is going to be good and performance is going to be good for both Linux and Windows. Whether I use Windows or not, it doesn't matter. But the point being is I got to find that sweet spot. I've got to find where a card is going to perform where I want it to perform at the price that I want to buy it at. Because we're getting to the point right now, unless a miracle and a half happens with AMD, the next generation AMD cards, unless some miracle happens, I'm still stuck driver-wise with running NVIDIA when it comes to gaming now, and I don't like that. But I have to find that price point. I've got to know, am I going to have to spend $700 or $600 to buy the card I want to use to get the graphics and performance I want under my Linux machine? Or am I going to be able to spend $400 or $300 to get the performance that I want, where I want it, how I want it? And then not even to consider the people who are in the Linux community that want to run 4K. That's a whole other can of worms. Because they're having to buy the most expensive cards you can possibly buy from NVIDIA to get 4K. And Atomic, you can agree to that because don't you have one of those 980 Ti's at 4K?
Yeah, I do. And I think that we are talking about two different issues. You're talking about the value component of it, and I'm looking more at the offerings here. In the 7 series, the 780 and 780 Ti were in the same tier. There were two offerings in the same tier. When we came around to the 9 series, the 980 was not a top tier card. It was a mid tier card. The 980 Ti was the top tier card, and it was actually a different piece of silicon. It shared that silicon with the Titan X. And it looks like, if I'm going by the information in the doc here, that they're going to continue that trend. The 1080 still has that 256-bit wide bus that I bitched about when the 980 came out. 10,000 megahertz memory. Still only got 320 gigs a second memory bandwidth. That's no better than the 780. Yeah, in fact, that might just be a little bit less than the 780.
Well, as a footnote to that, I think NVIDIA is banking on their quote-unquote memory compression technology. How well that works, I don't know.
Total bullshit. Total fucking bullshit.
Well,
okay.
it means complete and utter shit under Linux because you can't take advantage of it, but that's not the point.
Well, I think it's actually in the GPU, and it's not related to the driver. So
okay.
I'm seeing this as they tried to position the 1070 relative to the 1080 and didn't quite hit the mark. So what I'm saying about the 1060 is that the 970 had a nice run. It got to the top of the Steam hardware survey. As bad as that survey is, it got to the top because people were buying a little bit better card to get their 1080 fix, their 1080p 60 fix, and now they can go and get a 1060. So the 1060 is going to take over for the 970 as far as
wait, I don't follow.
Sales go.
I don't follow your logic. The 960 was perfectly capable of 1080 60. What are you saying as far? I think the reason people bought the 970 is because it was an amazing value for what you were getting at $300.
Well, you're not gonna buy it if you're not budgeting $300. You're gonna buy the 960 if you're going under 300.
I don't know. The 60 series is about 230 to 250 depending on which third party you buy. 350 more bucks, knowing that you're getting a significantly better card, and you add in that value, I think will put people over the edge to actually buy it. I would buy a 970 if I was in the market to buy a 900 series card. I would buy the 970 and save an extra week to get the $50 to get the 970 because it is hands down better than the 960. Hands down. It's the difference between the 970 and the 960 is much greater than the difference between the 760 and the 770. And it was well worth it. Which is why I have a problem with the 1070. The 1070 doesn't offer that same value, and they bumped up the base MSRP price by another $40 again. So no. And so what are your options? You can either go down or you can go up. Well, $600 is not even, you don't see for a week and get another. Like what is that difference? $200? So that's not an option. And going down means less performance. I feel like Nvidia is doing the same thing that Intel is doing. They are artificially segmenting their own market because they can, and AMD is not, throwing the power punches at them to make them stop. Not at this point.
Right, but AMD's having to compete with both. AMD's competing with Intel, and they're competing with NVIDIA. So AMD is literally, where basically everybody's giving AMD crap about it. You gotta remember, AMD's fighting with two companies that do two different things. NVIDIA does graphics cards and whatever SoC chips that they want to do, and Intel does CPUs and SoC chips. So Intel's competing with NVIDIA and SoC, AMD's competing with Intel and whatever and SoC, but they're also having to compete in two separate segments, graphics cards and CPUs. Two different segments competing with two different pieces. Whereas, the line is drawn with NVIDIA. You can't buy a NVIDIA CPU. You can only buy a NVIDIA GPU. And you can only buy, technically you cannot buy an Intel GPU by itself. You can't do that. You could buy a CPU with a GPU in it, but you cannot buy it by itself. And of course, you're not going to ever get the same kind of performance unless whatever that weird thing is they're doing with their CPUs now. But you're never going to get the real raw performance, is the saying, right? So now AMD is having to play both games. They have to compete with both now, and we're getting all upset because they're not doing amazingly. So, what is in the Xbox products? What is in the
here's
PlayStation
my point.
Products?
I think we all understand that point of view, but the problem is it doesn't matter because there is no competition in the market. And as long as there's no competition in the market, NVIDIA and Intel will continue to artificially segment their own customer base by nickel and diming the crap out of them. Oh, you want this? Oh, we're going to add 6 more SKUs of this same thing, artificially cut back its performance, and make the price gaps $40 each. And that confuses customers, that boosts the price, the MSRPs, and it's confusing as hell. And then you end up losing performance per dollar because of this. I'm not saying it's AMD's fault. I'm just saying because of the lack of AMD, or whoever else it may be, some made up company. I think we're gonna continue to see Intel and Nvidia price hike the shit out of their stuff and adding crazy stuff like the Extreme Intel series. Why does it really exist? Why does it even need to exist? To be honest with you, they could easily have put the Intel in Skylake. They could have easily made a 6-core i7 as their flagship CPU and priced it the same, because the 5820 is priced the exact same as the 6700 Intel. They artificially segmented their own market just to do. I think they do it on purpose just to make more money. Obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's the thing about now we're talking about a completely different thing that has nothing to do with technology in itself. It has to do with making money. It has to do with greed. It has to do with there are billions and billion-dollar companies, like they're multi-billion-dollar company. They want to continue to make billions of dollars. Their intent's not to give the graphics cards away for free. They want to sell them. That's the same on both sides. Both, Intel, both on NVIDIA. They're billion-dollar companies. They want to be able to make their products. They want to be able to, sell their products at, and if they compete against themselves and there's no competition, they have to make competition because it's the only way they can sell their stuff, or people just expect it. And it's and that's the downside to a free market system. But at the same time, you can't regulate the crap out of them because they killed off all their competition. They're the big shark in the water, and so they killed off their competition. They don't really have much competition anymore. So AMD is the only other competition in the market, and AMD is the competition for both. So, and AMD is not doing so good. So, where does that leave it? Not really much.
Leaves the consumer. Leaves the consumer with a broom up their butt. That's where it leaves us. I am totally disappointed in the specs for the 1070. The 1080 seems decent. Like it's a decent upgrade for the price. It's a good upgrade for the price, in my opinion. The 1070, not so much. I have not looked at the 1060, but I personally wouldn't be going to a 1060. But I would still be interested in its value because that's very important. And then, for Linux users, at least, I don't believe that AMD is really a choice. So that's a whole nother ball of can of worms.
Well, okay, on the CPU side of things, I do have to disagree with that. I do have to say that AMD is a good choice on the CPU side.
Well, I'm definitely not talking CPU, GPU only.
Right, but as you've already stated, it's the same problem we're dealing with NVIDIA that we're dealing with Intel. They're price gouging, as you want to call it, however we want to say it, it really is price gouging because they have no competition really other than themselves, and they are, it's the same thing with the thing. To be honest with you, people are going back and forth and like, well, Intel is owning the crap out of AMD in their CPUs. That's fine and dandy. They can own them all day long. But they still have to pay AMD money to use the technology that Intel is using right now. And until Intel has their own technology, they still have to pay for the 64-bit architecture, and they still have to pay for multi-core support. They still have to pay both of them, because guess what? AMD came up with it first. And guess who also came up with HMB first on their cards? AMD. They did it. Their technology is usually ahead of the curve. And with Vulkan in play, AMD cards that are 5 years old are still relevant. May not be relevant on Linux, but they're still relevant.
Well, getting back to my point.
Yeah.
Where previously you would tell somebody if they're looking for a graphics card, you could get a 960, but if you stretch a little bit more, you get the 970, the better value. Gives you a lot more performance for not much more money. Here, and I know the 1060 isn't out yet, we don't have specs for it, but if it follows the trend, and there is a trend here, the 1080 has more CUDA cores than the 980. The 1070, as much as you're deriding it, has more CUDA cores than the 970. The 1060 will have more CUDA cores than the 960. And using the same process, they're going to have much higher clock speeds. So you're going to see the 1060 probably outstrip the 970.
I think the 1060 will probably be almost somewhere between the 970 and the 980. To be honest with you, if we're looking at the same trend, it's not that we're not moving forward. Is the issue for me? The issue for me is relevant to everything in its own generation. The pricing, the value versus the performance seems skewed a bit. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's the best way I can describe it. It seems a bit skewed, but maybe Maxwell was a fluke. Yeah, maybe I'm putting too much weight into what happened with Maxwell, and I thought maybe that would be a trend, and I was stupid for thinking that and trusting NVIDIA. My bad. That's my only issue. I don't really have an issue with it not being better. It's definitely better. Better power consumption or efficiency. Wait, like you say, better CUDA cores. It's definitely gonna ruffle stomp the crap out of Maxwell. And Maxwell it did pretty big hurt on Kepler as far as just like pure gaming performance versus and with power adding value and power efficiency. It was a pretty nice step forward. Now, if you start talking about pure numbers, one could argue, as you did earlier, the difference between the 780 and the 980. But I don't know how relevant that is because I don't know how important this so-called memory compression technology is supposed to be. I don't even know what it does.
as I said, it's pretty much garbage. It had no measurable effect on performance when I tested it with the 980. It's hard to get any hard numbers on the 980 Ti because that has an actual 384-bit bus. And yeah.
So go ahead.
Now I've heard that the benchmarks for the 1070 are actually the 1070 are still at or above Titan X level. So,
yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, there's two questions. Does one actually upgrade from Maxwell? Especially since you like your high refresh rates and high resolutions. Do you upgrade?
well, I would definitely recommend the 1060 when it comes out, sight unseen, to anybody who's going to be playing 1080p 60. But for me, I'm going to wait it out. I've got the 980 Ti, and that does the high refresh pretty well in games that aren't CPU limited. And I honestly want to wait until NVIDIA has some HBM, because I think the memory bandwidth is going to be the big killer in 4K and high refresh rates.
For me, somebody who's still on Kepler, which is the 780, I almost still don't see a reason to upgrade if you're only going to play games on Linux. I don't think there's a Linux game that really... I don't think there's too many Linux games that are really push my card to the limit that I can't do 1080 60. And I think, would you agree that 780 is still a 1080p card at that point in time?
What did you say, the 1070?
The 780. That would
780.
That's a high-end 1080p card, you would say?
If it's a tie, yes. If it's just a stand, no. But if it's a tie card, yeah, it's pretty much a card that I really don't think, in my opinion, I really don't think there is a. To be honest with you, if you're still running a 780 Ti now, your next option is just to find the most cost-effective out of the next generation. If you want to upgrade to it, but at this point right now, if you've already skipped going to a 980 Ti or anything else like that, you're better off going the next generation or waiting till the 980 Ti drops in price when the newer cards hit, and picking one of those up if you just want performance, because it really is that point right now. For Linux, that's where we're at. Now, if they continue with the trend, then we're screwed, because our performance isn't going to be there. Or if a game comes out that would require it, then we'd really be at that point. But yeah, to be honest with you, I don't really see much performance change under Linux between the 980 Ti that I've dealt with and the 780 Ti that I had. I don't see an option or a choice that's really different. It's not really.
If you're a filthy dual booting heathen, as Atomic likes to call it,
Heathen,
there is a reason to upgrade for one simple fact, and that's more memory now. It's about goddamn time they put some memory on these cards. I mean, the higher clock speed and all that stuff is great, because I do have several games that will max out my GPU to the absolute on core and all that. And even memory, actually.
What?
Doom will do it, yes. Matter of fact, if you play it on nightmare settings, it uses I think nearly 6 gigs of VRAM. So GG to anybody with the 4 gig cards. And then games like open world games that'll eat up your card too. GTA, Arc. Well, Arc has other issues with the Unreal Engine, but yeah, we'll leave that alone.
But it's pretty.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I even with the 780, minus the RAM issue, the VRAM issue, I don't know if I feel the need to upgrade, because I can play every game that you can throw at it at least high and have no issues, except for the RAM issue. But At the end of the day, I think the 1080 is a great value. The 1070 is meh. 1060 should be awesome. As an entry level car, I think the 1060 is going to be like that might be the shining star out of the Pascal group. To be honest with you, because if it sits between the 970 and the 980 at $230, that's going to be nice. That's going to be extra nice.
So, what is our conclusion on the round table? We just flip the table? Are we flipping the table? Are we saying?
I think we're flipping the table.
We're flipping the table. Okay.
See,
So,
we should have flipped the table, and you should have had a picture of Linus giving NVIDIA the middle finger. That would have been time appropriate.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what though? That's the funnier part. As soon as Linus flipped NVIDIA the finger, they started fixing stuff. You know?
Right.
You poke the bear gets pissed off, the bear bites your head off, and then your friends fix whatever it was that you poked the bear with. You know, that's whatever. So that analogy was horrible.
Yeah,
but you know
was.
what? I'm just gonna say Russia, and we'll leave that.
Go and check out our website, lextechandgaming.com. You can view our past shows, tutorials, and game reviews. And you can view a blog post I made criticizing Valve about their Steam hardware survey, so check that out.
It's an open letter.
Yeah. Hey, Gabe Newell, call me. I'll teach you how to do business.
Wow.
And, while you're there at our website, you can find our Twitter, our Google+, the sites that we stream to, and the Steam group, which acts as our official forum.